Hey, imagine you're scrolling through a sea of pre-built gaming rigs, and you keep catching yourself wondering if you're about to throw money at something that'll actually run the games you love without a constant grind for upgrades. I get that hesitation. You want a machine that can crank out 4K frames in the latest titles, but you also don't want to end up with a box that overheats or forces you into a compromise on storage. The Skytech O11 Vision does a lot of talking in its headline specs, but the real question is whether those specs translate into a smooth, day-to-day experience for someone who's serious about gaming and content creation. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon, so keep that handy while we walk through the practical side of this PC. First off, the heart of the O11 Vision, the AMD Ryzen 7 9800X3D, is a beast for both gaming and multitasking. What makes the X3D variant stand out is the 3D V-cache, which essentially adds a layer of cache on top of the traditional silicon, giving a noticeable bump in titles that are sepia-bound, like strategy games or simulations. In real-world use, that translates to smoother frame rates in games like Civilization VI and less stutter when you have a stream open in the background. If you're the type who likes to have Discord, OBS, and a game all running at once, this CPU can handle the load without asking you to lower settings. Pair that with an NVIDIA RTX 5090 32GB GDDR7 GPU, and you've basically got a card that's built for the future. In practice, the RTX 5090 can push 1440p ultra-high settings with frame rates well above 100 frames per second in titles like Cyberpunk 2077, and it's more than capable of 4K at high-medium settings for most current games. The 32GB of VRAM is overkill for most gamers today, but it does give you room to experiment with high-resolution texture packs and future-proof the rig for upcoming titles that will demand more memory. If you dabble in ray-traced workloads, the RTX 5090's dedicated RT cores make a visible difference. You'll see cleaner reflections and more realistic lighting without the dramatic FPS drops that older cards suffer. Now, the storage story is where the O11 Vision really shines for the everyday user. A 2TB Gen 4 NVMe SSD means you're not just getting massive capacity, you're also getting blazing fast load times. In tests, games installed on this drive launch in under 5 seconds, and large patches that used to cause a few minutes of waiting now barely register on the clock. The Gen 4 interface pushes sequential read speeds past 7 GB per second, which is useful if you plan on moving large video files or working with 4K footage in your edits. That said, the price tag for a 2TB Gen 4 SSD is not cheap, so if you're on a tighter budget you might consider swapping a portion of that storage for a cheaper SATA SSD or HDD, but you'll lose the lightning-quick load times that many gamers consider essential. Cooling is another area where the O11 Vision makes a claim with its high-spec AIO liquid cooler. In everyday use, this means the system stays relatively quiet while the CPU is under load. You won't hear the fan screaming at 80% usage while you're grinding through a raid. The AIO also keeps temperatures in the low 60s C under sustained gaming, which is comfortable for the long sessions you might run on weekends. The downside is that liquid coolers add a layer of complexity. If you ever have to service the PC, you'll need to be comfortable with reseating the radiator or dealing with potential leaks, something a first-time builder might want to consider. The 1000W gold-rated PSU is generous, especially given the power draw of an RTX 5090. In practical terms, this means the PSU won't be the bottleneck in any overclocking experiment, and the gold efficiency helps keep electricity costs lower than a lower efficiency unit would. However, a 1000W unit does increase the overall weight of the chassis, making it less ideal if you plan on moving the rig frequently. For a stationary setup, say, under a dedicated desk or a gaming corner, this isn't an issue, but it's worth noting for anyone who might want to bring the PC to a LAN party. One of the newer features is Wi-Fi 7, 802.11b, built right into the motherboard. In day-to-day terms, this gives you a higher theoretical bandwidth and lower latency than older Wi-Fi standards, which can be a subtle but real advantage if you're streaming games or using remote desktop applications. The catch is that you'll need a compatible router and devices to truly benefit from Wi-Fi 7's full potential. Without that ecosystem, you'll fall back to the solid but standard Wi-Fi 6 performance, which is still more than adequate for most online gaming sessions. Now, who should actually consider buying the Skytech O11 Vision? If you're a serious gamer who wants a machine that can handle 4K titles, heavy streaming, and future-proofing with enough VRAM and storage to not worry about upgrades for a few years, this pre-built is a strong contender. It's also a good match for content creators who need